Capitol Report is a production of Senate Media Services.
This week, key perspectives on a proposed statewide infrastructure package, also known as a bonding bill, and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan weighs in on the new state flag, the new state seal, and other changes. Stay tuned for this and more on this week's Capitol Report. Welcome to this week's program. I'm Shannon Loehrke. One significant negotiation expected in the 2024 legislative session is the size and scope of a bonding bill to fund upgrades for infrastructure around the state. Despite the so-called trifecta of a DFL governor and a DFL-controlled legislature, borrowing for capital improvements requires a 3/5 majority, giving Republicans a say in how much is borrowed and how the money will be spent. In mid-January, Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan laid out their vision for a $982 million infrastructure plan that prioritizes drinking water, community safety, maintenance of existing state facilities, and housing. 45%, or about $442 million, would go to repairs and improvements for state-owned buildings, including more than $200 million for infrastructure at Minnesota State and the University of Minnesota campuses. 22%, or $215 million, would be allocated for grants and low-interest loans to replace lead pipes, remove contaminants like PFAS from drinking water, and to develop a nitrate monitoring network. Walz and Flanagan would like to see 14%, or $142 million, directed to public safety projects like expanding laboratory and investigatory capacity for the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, building a new Minnesota State Patrol headquarters, and improving educational space for incarcerated individuals. 10%, or around $97 million, would support the development of multifamily housing and upgrades to the Minneapolis Veterans Home. Finally, 9%, or about $85 million, would go to local government projects and early childhood facilities. How much money is borrowed and how it will be spent will be up for debate in the coming legislative session. Joining me in the studio to talk about the bonding bill, the new state flag and seal, and more is the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Almost half of the bonding proposal, $442 million, is directed to improving existing buildings, with nearly half of that, $200 million, going specifically to higher education campuses at the University of Minnesota and Minnesota State. Why the emphasis on upgrading existing buildings rather than new construction?
Well, I think it's really important to Minnesotans and taxpayers to ensure that we're maintaining the investments that they've already made instead of knocking things down and building things brand new. We also know that we've really gone big in the last legislative session. We had a significant bonding bill. We've gotten resources from the Biden-Harris administration, almost $1 billion to make sure that we're making these investments in infrastructure. So we thought it was important to just maintain what we already have. And we think that that's what's appropriate for this year.
The remainder of the proposal would go to clean water efforts, public safety improvements, affordable housing, and local governments. Now, any bonding bill will need Republican votes, as you well know, and Senator Karin Housley is the Republican lead of the Senate Capital Investment Committee. She raised concerns about the lack of funding in your package for roads and wastewater treatment. Do those concerns need to be added to the mix?
Well, we have over $200 million that is set aside for clean water and roads. And so, that investment is there, again, building on the foundation of the investments that we made the last session. But I think I'm interested if Senator Housley has additional resources that she wants to spend in the bonding bill, we're going to talk about it. I think, as a recovering legislator, I know that the proposal that the governor and I put out is not the one that we will end up with at the end of the session. It's a conversation. It's a bipartisan conversation. We simply think it's important to maintain those investments that we've already made, and that there's an opportunity to see if we can do more, and we'll get there.
I'd like to shift gears now and talk about some of the historic changes of the past few years. And one has become so customary that I frankly take it for granted, and that is that there is always a White Earth Nation flag that is displayed along with the United States flag and the Minnesota state flag. Those three flags together, what does that mean for you personally and for Indigenous people in Minnesota?
Well, I think it's a powerful reminder that Native people are contemporary people, but that we've always been a part of Minnesota. Having the White Earth Nation flag in the reception room is important to me because I'm a dual citizen. I'm a citizen of the United States. I'm also a citizen of White Earth, or the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, and I think that that matters. But I'll be really honest with you, it was the governor who said, "Why don't you put the White Earth flag in here?" And it was, to be honest with you, something that I hadn't even thought would be possible. And that has been so much of what we've been able to do together and to do with our tribal state relations office, codifying tribal consultation into law. The tribal state relations training is now mandatory for every leader and every state agency. And the partnerships that we've developed with tribes have been incredibly powerful. So I think it's just a representation of that, and I'm proud to fly that flag in our office.
This segues nicely into the selections by the State Emblems Redesign Commission, who were charged with choosing a new state flag and a new state seal. The new flag is an 8-pointed star on a dark blue K-shaped background with the remaining space a lighter blue. The new state seal features a loon and the Dakota phrase, Minnesota Makoche, which means the land where the water reflects the skies. Unless the legislature steps in, these will become the new emblems of Minnesota on Statehood Day, May 11th. What's your take?
I'm really excited about it. I know that there has been a lot of chatter about the flag in particular, but for me, as a Native woman, anything is an improvement over a Native person being driven off their land and having a rifle pointed directly at them. I think if you do a little research into the history of that flag, you'll see that Native people across the state of Minnesota are right to say that there needed to be a change. The state seal, I think, is incredible. To have the Dakota language on that seal, to have a loon or a manch in Ojibwe, along with wild rice with the Minoman, the state grain, I think is a really powerful representation of who we are. I'm excited to put that state seal on everything, where I would have shied away from that previously. And I also think, with the flag, it's beautiful. When we see it, I see some of the images of it flying. The Minnesota part, I think, really stands out. We'll get used to it, and I think change is hard, but as Minnesotans, we adapt and we move forward together, and I think that's what we're going to do here too.
These are examples of change in visual representation in the state of Minnesota. To that can be added new laws that will require further education among teachers to incorporate more Indigenous history into school curriculum. There are also new standards involving ethnic studies that are going to roll out soon. How do you think these changes will impact the lives of Native people and people of color in Minnesota?
Well, I think, it certainly will impact everyone's life in the state of Minnesota. For Native folks, this is something tribal leaders had asked us about for a long time. That oftentimes we'd get to become adults, right? Or you come to the Capitol even, and there's a need for Indigenous 101. Wouldn't it be better if we simply just taught our young people about the folks who have always lived here and still live here? I think it makes a big difference. I also think for ethnic studies and for students of color, seeing themselves reflected in their teachers, seeing themselves reflected in their curriculum, really demonstrates that the educational system values them, and therefore in turn they value their education. That certainly was my experience once I got to the University of Minnesota and was an American Indian Studies minor. And then I just say everyone in Minnesota benefits because, we're better prepared for the world around us, for the future workforce, for the future of the state of Minnesota, if we have more knowledge about the truth, the history, and the people who live in our state. I think it's good for everybody, and I'm excited for my own daughter to start, learning more about where she lives, who she is, and who the people are around her.
You've often been one to lead by sharing your own story. For example, you highlighted your experience as a school kid with a lunch ticket that looked different from other kids in advocating for universal free meals for all school kids. More recently, when celebrating a new law that became effective January 1st that prohibits employers from asking about salary history of potential employees, you talked about your own experience with that led you to accept a position for $40,000 less than your predecessor. Would our political climate be different if more people spoke from personal experience and less from a sense of ideology?
Yes, that's the short answer. But I think it's changing, right? I think the legislature itself, right, looks more like Minnesota, and I think that women leaders oftentimes will connect by telling stories, and I think it makes a difference. You know, knowing that you have something in common with someone, showing a little vulnerability, I think is the way that we build compassion for each other, but is also the way that we build support for the things that we want to work on. Having leaders who more accurately reflect the communities that they seek to represent is good for democracy. And I think I just want people to know that they're not alone. And I want people to know that there may be self-imposed barriers that they have put on themselves and say, I can't sit at this table, I can't run for this, I'm not supposed to be a part of this because of something that's happened in their life or their past. And I would argue that, you know, the very opposite is true. Those rich experiences make us better leaders. And when you have lived experience, you should be able to bring that to the table, and then we get better results in policy too.
Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, what a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Senator Omar Fateh and supporters advocated for a bill that would eliminate minimum parking mandates statewide.
A minimum parking mandate is a requirement that whenever someone builds a new building or renovates an old one, they are forced to build a certain number of parking spots, whether they need them or not. These mandates are often completely arbitrary. For example, let's take how 2 suburban cities in Minnesota regulate bowling alleys. In Carver, for every bowling lane that a bowling center has, they have to have 2 parking spots. In Anoka, for every bowling lane, they have to have 7 parking spots. Why is it 2 spots per bowling lane in one city and 7 in a different one? Are bowlers driving 3.5 times as much in Anoka as in Carver? No.
Most people don't realize how expensive minimum parking requirements are. The average parking lot at a new apartment building costs over $40,000 to build.
The parking standards that dominate our codes and restrictions at the city level today are pseudoscience that came out of a snapshot of suburban expansion in the 1950s and are not applicable to cities generally today.
Traditionally, a package of borrowing for statewide infrastructure projects is part of even-year legislative sessions. However, last year's budget-setting session saw the passage of a borrowing and cash package totaling $2.6 billion. The question is whether there is a bipartisan supermajority appetite for more. Joining me in the studio is the lead Republican of the Capital Investment Committee, Senator Karin Housley. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Shannon. I always love doing your show.
The Senate Capital Investment Committee has been really busy lately, touring potential projects all over the state, including more than 50 here in the metro area just last week. How great is the need for more borrowing?
Well, like you just said in the intro, we actually did the package last year, over $2.5 billion. Anybody that came to us last year got money and then some. More than they asked for. Everybody was giddy last year with the bonding bill. So there's a lot of, we had over $7 billion in requests, over $7 billion, because everyone's like, oh, I wonder if they're going to do another big package like last year. So everybody was just throwing things at the wall. And here they were, and like this stack of requests. So we traveled all over the state. We spent a lot of time in this off session, probably more than 90 hours just looking at all of the different projects. So some are really, really in need, and others are just wishful thinking. We'd like a playground or we'd like a community center. So we're going to have to, we did set expectations while we were out there going, it's not going to be $2.5 billion. So don't get your hopes up.
Following the proposed $982 million infrastructure package from the governor and the lieutenant governor recently, you released a statement that said, quote, "I am concerned there isn't more money in this proposal for local needs across the state. Wastewater treatment and crumbling roads might not be glamorous, but they are the basic necessities that every community needs to thrive." For Republican votes, are these concerns like these specifically key to a deal?
Absolutely. If we're going to get the Republican votes for any sort of borrowing, we have to have state infrastructure. And in our touring, there were a lot of bridges that were crumbling. And again, it's not glamorous, but it's about the safety of Minnesotans. So for any Republican votes to go towards this bonding bill, we're going to have things that are really, really, really needed, not just like I said earlier, it would be nice if we could get this money. These have to be real needs.
And we do need to note that this bill will require Republican votes because borrowing in Minnesota requires a 3/5 majority. I know it's early, and you've already said a few things that need to be in a bonding bill to achieve Republican support. Are there any others, and to what degree do you believe that this bonding package will be a negotiating tool for the session?
Well, and it always is. Every time there's a bonding bill, it's always the very, very last bill that gets passed. So we're going to have to see what the members on my team are going to have an appetite for, which I've already heard from a lot of them. They have zero appetite for any sort of borrowing, but then there's also others that have real needs in our community. So we're going to have to take a look at that. And I know it's always nice to get the bonding bill done first so everybody knows what money they're going to get, but it's just absolutely not possible when this is the only thing that the Republicans have any say in, where they absolutely need us. They can pass whatever they want, and they did last year. They passed everything they wanted, and so this is our only opportunity to have a voice in the legislature.
So perhaps another nail biter of a session.
It will be the last bill passed, and hopefully it'll be before midnight.
Senator Sandy Pappas, who is the chair of the Senate Capital Investment Committee, told Almanac's Mary LaHammer that she thinks there should be a bonding bill every year. It is true that everything in life needs maintenance in order to stay useful. Does she have a point that maintaining state infrastructure should be even an annual thing?
And I know she said that earlier, and I don't know if she's in the same camp as that right now, because she did say we aren't going to tour next year. But we did more than 90 hours. We did 90 hours a week, I should have said. So she said we weren't doing any touring next year. And I wonder if Senator Pappas is dialing that back and doing a bonding bill every year. So I don't know, but I do know that we do need to keep up our state infrastructure and making sure that everybody's safe. And part of that is making sure that our roads and bridges are safe.
I'd like your comments on a few things in the Walz-Flanagan package. 20% of their $982 million proposal would go to repair and renovate facilities on the campuses of Minnesota State and the University of Minnesota. This is commonly referred to as HEAPR, as I know you know, the Higher Education Asset Protection and Replacement Projects. The last bonding bill provided $43 million of the $200 million that the colleges and universities had asked for. Does the state need to catch up on efforts to preserve higher education facilities?
And you know, that's what was disappointing in the Walz-Flanagan $982 million bonding proposal, is there wasn't that much for local communities. Only 4% of that bill was for local communities, and that's what we've been touring. More than half of the $7 billion in proposals came from local communities. So I think when my communities of Stillwater and Oak Park Heights and Forest Lake saw the governor's bill, they were like, oh, well, wait a second, that's all for state higher ed buildings. So we gave them a ton of money last year, a ton for asset preservation. So, I mean, again, they're going to have to get Republican votes for it, and local communities are what's important to us in the infrastructure. So we will see where that negotiations go. But I think his was a little state agency heavy compared to what we would like to see.
And finally, in your statement, you mentioned wastewater treatment. Another aspect of clean water that the Walz-Flanagan administration wants to highlight are things like replacing lead pipes, removal of contaminants like PFAS, and increased monitoring for nitrates. Are investments in clean water something that everybody can agree on?
Absolutely. And we passed some clean water bonding projects last year, like in Andover, when they had been drinking out of water bottles for a year and a half. So we got their water on its way to getting cleaned up. Yeah, the lead pipes that we saw, that's something that really, really does need to be fixed, because for those contaminants to get into the water, it's really harmful to us. So yes, water treatment facilities and clean water and cleaning up the lead pipes takes priority over any of the special interest projects.
Senator Karin Housley, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
You too. See you later, Shannon.
After more than a century of use, the Senate chamber in the Minnesota State Capitol remains both beautiful and functional. Brian Pease of the Minnesota Historical Society tells us more. After 9 years of construction, the current Minnesota Capitol building opened to the public on January 2nd, 1905, at a cost of $4.5 million. Architect Cass Gilbert envisioned a distinct design for each of the large chambers, the Supreme Court, the House of Representatives, and here in the Senate chamber. What are some of the unique design features of this space?
The Senate chamber really is a square, almost a cube. It's as long as it is tall. And so once again, you're not having as many senators working here as you would House members. At that time we had 63 senators, and it's now 67. So you have to make a space to accommodate that large body of membership. But it's also a space that reflects the idea it's an upper house. So when you look at the color scheme, it's a little bit more of a purple, a richer color tone. You have beautiful French marble called fleur de pêche, which gives it a sense of elegance. And so it's a space to impress, but also be a good space to work in, to influence those legislators so they can be worthy, doing something worthy to be remembered.
Cass Gilbert's philosophy as an architect was that of a Renaissance man. It was an all-encompassing vision for the space that he was creating. So here in the Senate chamber, is it fair to say that no detail was too small for his consideration?
He was a master of detail, and he planned everything specifically for a purpose. So you have a lot of beautiful decoration, stencil work here. If you look closely, you can see behind the President of the Senate's desk, there's stencils of pineapples, which represents hospitality. In the alcoves where the busts are of different senators, you'll see lady slippers. And so he's incorporating the kindness, the symbols of Minnesota to represent the good things that can be done in the state capitol.
When the Capitol building opened, the Senate murals were not yet in place. They were painted and shipped from elsewhere. We've gone into great detail about these murals in a different segment, but briefly, what's important for people to understand?
Yeah, this is a capitol that's proclaiming in 1900 important parts of Minnesota's history and its economy. So one huge mural represents Minnesota, the granary of the world, basically giving a nod to all the agriculture products. The farmers, the Civil War veterans were the preservers of the Union, so we can be this prosperous state. And then we have another huge mural that is representing the importance of the Mississippi River in Minnesota, with Native American figures and discoverers and families moving into this land. And so these are the largest murals in the Capitol. And so it's a pretty impressive feat when you look at they're 35 feet long, 18 feet tall, painted in a studio not in Minnesota but in New York. And so they were rolled up and shipped by train to St. Paul to be placed on these walls. And so they're all big canvases with paint on top and then glued to the walls.
Also, when the building opened, the 4 alcoves in the corners were empty. Those spaces were filled at a later date. How was that determined?
Yeah, that's a mystery. We still haven't figured out who and what was being determined to, and who was going to be placed in these niches. It started pretty much right from the first 5 years of the Capitol. There was the daughter of Henry Rice donated his bust to Minnesota. And so the state legislature provided money to to pay for a base, and then they put the bust on top of that base. And so he would have been the first to be on display in this chamber in about 1910. Knut Nelson's bust of governor, as we mentioned earlier, but also our longest serving U.S. senator, his bust was placed here about 1915. So that at one time was in the governor's private office. And so either they decided we don't have room for it or we should move it out of there. And so the Senate, for whatever reason, picked it up and took that into the chamber here. The Cushman Davis and the William Washburn busts are a little bit more shrouded in mystery of why they were selected or why they're here. But the one commonality between all four is they were all U.S. senators from Minnesota.
The Senate chamber has not been immune to changes over the years. The 2016 renovation returned it to its original state, but what are some examples of changes that happened over the ensuing years between that time? What did they do to alter that had to be repaired or redone?
Well, if you would have been here in 1905, there were decorative lamps on the corners of the clerk's desk and also on the President of the Senate's desk. And once again, you're looking at electricity being relatively new, so they needed as much light on those spaces as workspaces. Those disappeared probably by the 1940s because I'm not sure if they were in the way or lighting was better, so they disappeared from the chamber. We added, during the renovation of the Capitol in 1971, they added a gate that's in the front. Before then, in all likelihood, when the Senate wasn't meeting, the chamber doors would have been shut, so you wouldn't have had access to see what's inside the space. And also the clerk's desk was enlarged at different times during that history because the needs of the legislature is bigger as time progresses. And so that was enlarged to accommodate more clerks and more space to put their paper and so forth. Plus, this is a room that was altered over time because carpet would wear out, the original carpet disappeared, so they put in something that made it look good in the chamber. By 1988, we really had seen a completely different chamber than what we saw in that restoration. This would have had all purple walls, a solid purple carpet. The walls out in the hallway were also tinted purple to match the marble inside the chamber. So there was a real departure from what Cass Gilbert had originally designed and wanted for this space. And so what you're seeing today is really that going back to Cass Gilbert's original vision. And so this is a space of 1905, and it still functions as a modern working office space.
Cass Gilbert said, "The Capitol is the best work I have ever done or shall ever do, and I am glad to have given it to St. Paul." If Cass Gilbert were standing with us today, would he be pleased?
I think so. He maybe not so much before the restoration in 1988 and the work that was done most recently, but really this is as he envisioned this space to be. You know, so I can imagine walking through the chamber going, yeah, this is really nice. This is exactly how I wanted these color schemes to be represented. The paintings work well here. The symbols are all an important part of it. The retiring room, which is a magnificent space, is still pretty close to what it was originally. So I think it would be very, very pleased.
Join us again next week as we delve into more topics affecting Minnesotans. I'm Shannon Loehrke, and on behalf of all of us at Senate Media Services, thanks for watching.